Imagine a portal standing directly in your path. Up until now, you might have struggled to put a name to it. Perhaps it manifested as a quiet sense of unease, a continuous subtle vibration humming beneath your everyday routine, hinting that a profound transformation is underway. Deep within, beyond the identity you've always known, a hidden force is pushing to the surface, seeking an escape route. You might have noticed an uncanny feeling. The person you were half a year ago, a few weeks, or even mere days ago, has vanished, replaced by whoever is listening to these words right now. There were no fireworks or grand announcements, just a quiet, permanent, and undeniable shift in your being. This isn't random chance. It isn't a trick of your mind. It is your awakening process taking hold. In this session, we will chart this entire progression. We will trace the path from that initial spark, the very first indication that your awareness is expanding, all the way to a realm rarely experienced by humanity. It is a condition that defies everyday vocabulary, a dimension where you become completely invincible to outer noise. In this space, the turmoil of the outside world simply cannot penetrate your inner sanctuary. You will have navigated so many transitional boundaries and absorbed so many profound shifts in your state of being that your energetic resonance locks into a frequency others merely dream of, study, or touch for fleeting seconds. Together, we will navigate every single phase of this expedition. However, before we proceed, it is crucial to define what this awakening truly entails. Too often, people toss this term around as if it were a blurry, unquantifiable, mystical concept. It is far from that. This activation is an exact, structured occurrence. It operates with distinct phases, specific mechanisms, and a clear trajectory. Once you grasp its true nature, you will be able to pinpoint your exact coordinates on this journey. You will identify the exact doorway you are currently facing. Most importantly, you will gain the life-altering clarity required to finally walk through it. Let us start at absolute zero, not the start of your personal story, but the genesis, the split second before awareness ignites. Science speaks of a condition known as a dormant state. This isn't emptiness or a void. Rather, it is pure, concentrated potential. Think of a subatomic element resting at its baseline. Its energy is minimized. It isn't dead. It is simply coiled up, patiently waiting. All of its future possibilities are tightly packed into a microscopic point, needing only the correct vibrational trigger to start climbing to higher dimensions. For the vast majority of our history, collective human awareness has resided right here. This isn't a flaw. It doesn't mean humanity is defective or inferior. Slumber is a completely valid phase. It is the foundation where everything originates. You wouldn't criticize an atom for resting at its base level, just as you wouldn't blame a seed for being buried in the soil. Yet, there comes a turning point. A seed is not meant to remain in the dark indefinitely. The environment inevitably alters. The warmth increases by a fraction of a degree. The soil achieves the perfect hydration, and the heavy earth above softens just enough. Suddenly, something that has laid dormant for years, decades, or perhaps what feels like an eternity, stirs. That initial movement is the primary tier of this energetic leap. We call it the initial tremor. If you are listening to this message, if some unseen force guided you here, you have already experienced this vibration. You have already breached that primary barrier. The only question left is, how deep down this path are you prepared to travel? Let's lay out the entire blueprint, from absolute slumber to complete invulnerability. The first stage is what we label the slumbering matrix. This is the starting line. In the realm of physics, an element at its baseline is not entirely frozen. It shivers. It dances in a perpetual state of zero-point fluctuation. This baseline energy is a proven, quantifiable reality, the spark that persists even at absolute zero. When all external forces are removed, the core is never entirely motionless. It simply hasn't received the charge needed to elevate its status. Human awareness in its unawakened phase operates exactly the same way. You are not a blank slate. You are oscillating at the base frequency of your own consciousness. Your deepest aspirations remain tucked away within your fundamental makeup. Your innate wisdom is heavily compressed into raw possibility. The ultimate resonance you are destined to achieve is already programmed into your DNA. It has been there since the beginning, quietly awaiting the right catalyst to launch your upward trajectory. How does this resting phase actually feel to experience? It feels like an existence that functions perfectly on paper. The frameworks are built. Your daily habits are executing flawlessly. You have relationships. You have a career. You have a predictable schedule. Yet, there is an elusive emptiness. It isn't necessarily sadness. Rather, it's a sense of profound shallowness. It feels akin to residing within a flat picture of reality instead of breathing in the 3D world. You are taking all the right steps, but none of them feel authentic. It's as though you are operating just a fraction out of sync with your own life. The vast majority of individuals lingering in this slumbering matrix are completely unaware of their condition. That is simply how it works. You cannot perceive the doorway when you are anchored at the baseline frequency, because the doorway isn't visible on that channel. It is real. It has been there all along. You just haven't developed the sensory capacity to pick up its broadcast yet. The broadcast is active, but your antenna isn't properly aligned. Then, a catalyst appears. It doesn't need to be a massive explosion. In truth, the most frequent trigger for transitioning into the second phase is almost comically mundane. Someone utters a phrase that strikes a completely unexpected chord. You stumble upon a paragraph in an article that shatters a mental barrier. You experience a specific kind of stillness and realize, for the very first time, that you are consciously observing your own awareness. A partnership concludes, ignites, or profoundly alters. You experience a deep sorrow or a sudden triumph. A fleeting glimpse of profound beauty catches you off guard, slipping past your mental defenses and touching something deep within. This is the catalyst, the energetic surge that initiates your transformation. This leads us directly to the second phase, the initial vibration. In the scientific realm, when you inject energy into a baseline element, it doesn't instantly jump to the highest level. First, it vibrates. It trembles. The atom takes in the charge and starts fluctuating back and forth between its current position and the next level up. It hasn't fully committed to the leap, yet it's no longer entirely grounded in its old reality either. It occupies a space that scientists refer to as a superposition. It is simultaneously everything and nothing, present and absent, past and future. This is undoubtedly the most confusing stage of your evolution, because you are no longer your past self, but you haven't yet solidified into your future self. The previous framework of who you are remains, but it's fracturing. Your old, solid beliefs are still lingering, but they've morphed into uncertainties. The familiar world is still in sight, but a subtle presence on the periphery constantly hints at something grander, more complexity, more layers, a deeper truth than you've ever managed to grasp before. Here is what the initial vibration looks like in practice. You begin to spot correlations. You notice perfectly timed coincidences that feel far too orchestrated to be random chance. You see repeating sequences of numbers, recurring motifs, or stumble upon the same obscure concept from completely unrelated sources. Your nighttime visions grow incredibly vivid, intricately structured, and undeniably urgent. You find yourself seeking out knowledge that wouldn't have interested you a few months prior, topics concerning awareness, vibrational fields, and the fundamental architecture of the universe. You start pondering concepts you can't quite put into words yet, not because you have the solutions, but because a hidden part of you has realized there are entirely new realms waiting to be explored. This is not a hallucination. This isn't mere fantasy. This is your inner awareness starting to dial into a superior frequency, intercepting transmissions it was previously blind to. Think of it like tuning a radio dial. As you hone in, the white noise fades, and the broadcast becomes clear. The correlations were always present. The perfectly timed events were always happening. You simply lacked the sensory clarity to notice them. The trap hidden within this initial vibration is the urge to brush it off, to rationalize it away. You might try to blame the fracturing of your reality on exhaustion, stress, or just a passing phase. You might try to plaster over the tremors with familiar routines, choosing the comfortable known over the vague unknown. Because at this point, the unknown lacks definition. It's merely a tension, a magnetic draw, a silent but persistent knowing that a fundamental shift is occurring. Do not ignore it. This vibration is the sound of the doorway unlocking. If you currently feel caught in this superposition suspended between your past identity and your evolving self, vibrating precisely on the edge where the old is fading and the new is still forming, know that there is a roadmap designed specifically for this juncture. The sealed timeline charts this entire crossing, guiding you from this transitional frequency all the way to complete stabilization across all 5 phases, detailing the mechanics of an authentic, energetic leap. You can locate it in the details below. Phase 3 is what we will define as the initial collapse. Here is where the transformation becomes undeniable. In the realm of quantum physics, superposition is a temporary state. The element fluctuating between 2 realities must eventually make a choice. This decisive action is known as wave function collapse, the cloud of probability, holding all potential outcomes simultaneously, instantly solidifies into one concrete reality. The energetic becomes tangible. The possible becomes factual. Within human consciousness, this is often labeled a breakdown. However, breakdown is a misleading term as it suggests failure. What is truly unfolding is that the balancing act between your former self and your emerging self has become impossible to maintain, and reality steps in to force a decision. A major element in your external environment shifts so drastically that your old way of being is rendered completely obsolete. A bond you assumed was permanent shatters. A career you believed was your entire identity vanishes. A worldview you clung to since youth is proven inadequate. A medical crisis forces a complete restructuring of your life. A hidden reality is exposed and impossible to ignore. This dismantling is not a penalty. It is not a defeat. This breakdown is the literal quantum process of a frequency shift. It marks the exact instant the wave of possibilities condenses into a singular, concrete reality. It is the portal unlocking. Yet, while you are inside this demolition, it hardly feels like an inviting entrance. It feels as though the ground is dropping out from beneath your feet. During this stage, the architectures constructed during your slumber, the frameworks of your ego, your convictions, your connections, and your sense of purpose start to disintegrate. This rarely happens simultaneously. Instead, it is a methodical, step-by-step dismantling. The things you assumed were eternal are unmasked as fleeting. What you believed to be absolute truth is shown to be a fabricated illusion. The labels you thought encapsulated your essence are revealed to be nothing more than theatrical masks. In that liminal void between your past and your future, you encounter a highly specific flavor of hollowness completely unique to the human journey. It isn't merely clinical sadness or mourning, although sorrow certainly exists. It is something much more primal. It is the barrenness of a landscape freshly plowed for a new harvest, the blankness of a painting scraped down to the bare thread. It is a void that signifies readiness, not lack. The majority of individuals who hit this third tier are unaware they are undergoing a quantum leap. They interpret the experience as a disaster, a tragedy, a sign that their universe is spiraling out of control. Consequently, they react like typical humans facing discomfort. They attempt to repair it. They desperately try to resurrect what just fell apart, striving to piece together their former existence from the rubble. They confuse the necessary clearing for an attack, wasting massive amounts of effort trying to prop up structures destined to crumble. This is precisely where the awakening process halts for most. It isn't a lack of ability to progress. It's a failure to identify the wreckage as a crossing point. They literally stand at the open doorway and try to brick it back up. If you find yourself stranded in this tier right now, if your world has shattered in a manner that feels catastrophic, confusing, and completely unmanageable, listen closely. The destruction is the entrance. What died was not your actual life. It was simply the iteration of your existence tied to the frequency you are outgrowing. Beyond this doorway lies a dimension of reality that your previous vessel could never possibly hold. This ruin is not your finale. It is your transit point. If these words resonate deeply within your core, please consider liking and subscribing. It helps guide others toward this roadmap. This brings us to Phase 4, the assimilation matrix. This is the period following the destruction. In many respects, it is the most crucial segment of your entire evolution because it is where the heavy lifting occurs. It is also the least flashy, the quietest, and the most frequently undervalued stage. Following an energetic leap, an element doesn't instantly lock into its upgraded status. Physics calls the subsequent period relaxation a necessary window where the highly charged system acclimates to its new architecture. Power is reallocated. The uncharted territory is surveyed and occupied. The organism discovers its fresh center of gravity. In terms of awareness, assimilation is exactly this process. The demolition is finished. The former paradigm has melted away. The upgraded vibration is present, though it still fluctuates. The task of assimilation involves teaching yourself how to dwell within this new paradigm, grasping its demands, its gifts, its mechanics, and its entirely new set of laws. Experiencing this assimilation phase feels peculiar. You crawl out from the intense epicenter of the breakdown, only to step into an environment that visually matches your past, yet feels entirely alien. The roads are identical, the people are the same, the geography is unchanged. However, your intrinsic connection to all of it has pivoted. You are no longer an actor trapped inside the old narrative. You are now observing the play from a new vantage point, and that shift in perspective alters everything. Within this assimilation matrix, fresh abilities begin to sprout. Senses that were completely blocked during your slumber, and even during the initial vibrations, start to solidify. You begin to detect energetic currents in unprecedented ways. The invisible hum of a room, the undercurrent of a dialogue, the subtle weight of a dynamic, or the resonance of a decision. You develop a razor-sharp acuity for identifying exactly what depletes your reserves and what fuels your fire. You naturally begin to discern the contrast between things that match your current vibration and the lingering ghosts of your old life elements that still occupy space around you but no longer harmonize with your core. Furthermore, this is the juncture where what society labels intuition rapidly accelerates. However, inner knowing isn't sorcery. It isn't some ethereal concept detached from tangible reality. True intuition simply occurs when your internal sensory apparatus becomes sophisticated enough to recognize subtle codes and frequencies operating just beneath the radar of average human cognition. Your biological wiring is simply decoding data at a depth your conscious intellect cannot yet articulate. As your energetic signature elevates during this awakening, your sensory receptors broaden their range. You start downloading signals that have eternally existed right in front of you, yet were completely invisible before. This assimilation zone is also the arena where your interpersonal connections face their greatest overhaul. As your core vibration mutates, the harmonic match of your bonds inevitably alters. Ties that once anchored your previous existence start to clash. It isn't that these individuals have become toxic. It is merely that the energetic lock and key that held you together has dissolved. Conversely, individuals who hovered on the fringes or didn't exist in your sphere at all rapidly become pivotal. The fresh signal you are now transmitting magnetically attracts allies who were formerly entirely out of your scope. This marks one of the most agonizing realities of this expansion, a truth rarely spoken of with genuine candor. The bonds that dissolve during this recalibration are not mistakes. They aren't acts of treason. They are the organic aftermath of an energetic migration. By upgrading your dimension, anything tuned to your outdated frequency naturally falls out of sync. This is pure physics. It is entirely impersonal. Yet the heartbreak cuts deep, and that sorrow must be acknowledged and honored. Another critical evolution within this assimilation phase is the birth of an advanced inner radar. This is the skill of separating what truly matches your rising vibration from the deceptive ghosts of your past. masquerading as enlightenment. Your previous paradigm fights for survival. Those outdated habits, obsolete dogmas, and familiar coping mechanisms don't instantly vanish when the foundation cracks. They attempt a comeback. They cloak themselves in fresh disguises, mimicking the vocabulary of healing and elevation, all while covertly dragging you back down to the comfortable baseline. This advanced radar is the power to physically sense that distinction. You don't analyze it. You feel it coursing through your biology, detecting the surge of vitality or the drain of lethargy that a specific path, person, or ideology triggers within you. This profound sensitivity is forged in the fires of assimilation, becoming your most vital instrument for every upcoming tier of your ascent. Share your experience down in the comments. Have you ever hit that exact point where, devoid of logical explanation, you intuitively knew you had crossed an irreversible boundary, a profound internal pivot where retreating became impossible? I invite you to describe where your personal point of no return occurred. This escorts us to Phase 5, energetic lock-in. Here lies the premier stage of solid ground above your original baseline. For the very first time on this expedition, the chaotic swing between your past and future selves halts. You have landed, for now, in a robust, grounded architecture. In the language of quantum physics, this is dubbed a stationary state, a condition where the dynamic system anchors into a firm, unwavering resonance. The trembling stops. The dual reality of superposition is entirely gone. The element has decisively claimed its upgraded existence and will hold that ground until a fresh catalyst sparks the subsequent leap. Within your awareness, this lock-in manifests as pure lucidity. It isn't the strained focus of a mind struggling to concentrate, but the effortless transparency of an organism that has finally balanced itself. The chaotic riddles of the assimilation period suddenly unravel. Choices that previously paralyzed you now seem like common sense. Your true north, previously hidden beneath the debris of your breakdown and the fog of your recalibration, steps into the light with crystal-clear focus. You will simultaneously observe that your interaction with time itself undergoes a metamorphosis, not as some esoteric illusion, but in highly functional ways. The frantic rush of your old life, the endless dread of tomorrow, and the heavy chains of yesterday start to dissolve. This isn't because history and destiny stop mattering. It's because you establish a profound new tether to the now. At this locked-in frequency, the current second is no longer a fragile tightrope between a painful history and a terrifying horizon. It gains profound volume and texture. It becomes the exact coordinate where your absolute sovereignty resides. Finally, this is the altitude where your inner world begins producing quantum alignment. In physics, this describes wave patterns moving perfectly in sync. Their highs and lows match up beautifully, amplifying one another rather than destroying each other's momentum. Think of the difference between a scattered bulb and a laser beam. The latter is exponentially more potent simply because every ounce of energy travels in unified harmony. At this locked-in stage, human awareness starts mirroring this exact, unstoppable precision. Every facet of your being, your intellect, your feelings, your biology, your behaviors, and your profound inner wisdom starts to harmonize. They all march to the exact same rhythm. The agonizing internal conflicts that cause so much drag and bewilderment during your slumber and early awakening finally dissolve. You haven't buried these conflicts, you've simply metabolized them. You have discovered the precise wavelength where every fragment of your soul sings in unison. The momentum unlocked by this newfound synergy is staggering. This isn't about ruling over others or exerting force. It is about pure, frictionless execution. Tasks that used to drain your spirit now flow effortlessly. The universe hasn't magically smoothed out your path. Rather, you have stopped sabotaging your own journey. The massive reserves of energy previously wasted on internal wars are now channeled directly into building your new reality. Yet, as solid as this plateau feels compared to the chaos before it, it is not the final destination. It is merely a base camp, a sturdy launch pad required for the next profound jump. At this juncture, we must pause and bring a specific narrative to light. This evolutionary map isn't solely governed by cold physics. It thrives in the human experience. Let me share a tale that perfectly illustrates this locked-in state and what it takes to transcend it. Let us examine the story of Mara. For almost 4 decades, Mara existed deep within what she would later identify as the slumbering matrix. On the surface, she wasn't miserable. By society's metrics, she was thriving. A lucrative profession, a peaceful and functioning partnership, a gorgeous house, and a full social calendar. Yet, a silent ghost haunted her, an elusive sensation she later likened to having her face pressed tightly against a pane of cold glass. She felt as though she were observing her own existence from the outside, performing an incredibly accurate impersonation of herself rather than actually living. Her initial shockwave struck inside a local bookstore. She was hunting for an unremarkable birthday gift, but abruptly found herself hovering in an unfamiliar aisle. Unconsciously, she grabbed a spine off the shelf and read a passage that violently articulated her secret glass-pressed existence with shocking accuracy. She purchased it immediately and devoured it in a weekend. While the conceptual layers eluded her logic, her internal fortress had been permanently breached. In the ensuing months, the vibrations escalated. She routinely jolted awake at 3 in the morning, flooded with a lucidity that outshone her daytime reality. Routine chats began to leave her utterly exhausted, not just physically tired, but energetically bled dry. She realized this was the agonizing toll of forcing herself to sustain a vibration she had outgrown. Fleeting, undeniable flashes of intuitive clarity struck her. She could literally sense the gravity, heat, and texture of a room, a relationship, or a choice. But, being a highly logical woman, she brushed it all aside. Lacking the vocabulary for this quantum expansion, she panicked and sought refuge in her old routines, desperately working harder, planning her romance more obsessively, and packing her schedule even tighter. Her complete demolition arrived on a completely mundane Tuesday. There was no grand explosion, just a quiet breaking point built on mounting pressure. It manifested during a boardroom discussion where she finally voiced a raw truth, feeling the atmosphere shift instantly. It echoed in a calm, devastating confession to her partner that she simply couldn't pretend anymore. It culminated in her sitting paralyzed in a parking garage for 40 minutes, entirely incapable of walking back into the facade. In that silent car, the crushing weight of the invisible glass finally became too heavy to bear. Within 12 months, her entire framework crumbled. Her career restructured entirely. Her romance severed. The beautiful house was sold, and her calendar went blank. Amidst that vast, intimidating, yet liberating void, a new spark ignited. She didn't label it an activation. She simply called it profound loss. It was an era of supreme disorientation, where she couldn't recognize the woman in the reflection. Her appearance hadn't drastically altered, but the performer had retired. The impersonator was gone, leaving behind someone raw, terrified, yet undeniably present. Her assimilation phase consumed 2 entire years. 2 years of navigating by somatic instinct rather than intellectual logic. 2 years of letting old bonds wither away while allowing new ones to take root. 2 arduous years were spent honing this advanced radar, a delicate, sometimes agonizing process of learning to distinguish between genuine alignment with her new reality and clever disguises worn by her old habits. Finally, she arrived at energetic lock-in. For the very first time, she experienced the profound sensation of truly inhabiting her own life. The glass barrier had vanished. She was no longer a spectator on the outside looking in. She was present, unified, and real. She mistakenly believed she had reached her final destination. She hadn't. She had merely summited a plateau, and the subsequent portal was already materializing. This is the great illusion of the lock-in phase that eludes most people. It feels like the ultimate victory simply because it is vastly superior to the turmoil that preceded it. However, it is merely a base camp on the way to the peak. The next stage of elevation demands a sacrifice that lock-in, despite all its clarity and calm, cannot supply automatically. It demands capitulation. Phase 6. The quantum yielding. This is perhaps the most misconstrued tier of the entire journey. In conventional language, words like yielding or surrender carry a stigma of failure, submission, or the loss of personal power. In the realm of energetic awareness, capitulation means the exact opposite. It signifies the conscious unclenching of the exhausting, microscopic control mechanisms that have secretly governed your existence from the shadows. It is the end of the invisible, energy-draining campaign to constantly manage appearances, dictate outcomes, and control how you are perceived. Translating this to physics, it mirrors the moment a dynamic system ceases to fight the organic current of energy, permitting a spontaneous ascension to a superior state. The laws of thermodynamics describe entropy, the innate pull of elements toward their most likely arrangement. When an organism is stuck in an artificial or less probable state, it will effortlessly shift toward the more natural configuration the second the environment allows it. This shift isn't forced, it is permitted. Quantum yielding within human consciousness functions exactly like this. It is the profound realization that the upgraded tier, the higher frequency, is actually your more natural state of being. You recognize that your capacity far exceeds your current output, and that the chasm between where you are standing and your true potential isn't guarded by external forces, but by your own internal barricades. This internal friction wears many masks. It manifests as the creeping doubt that you are unequipped, the illusion that you need more data or more preparation before you can advance. It masquerades as the false belief that you are unworthy, that a certain quota must be met before the doorway unlocks. It also disguises itself within the soothing comfort of the lock-in phase itself. That stability is genuinely pleasant and reassuring, and comfort is a remarkably persuasive reason to stall your evolution. Most dangerously, this resistance hides within the fresh narrative you've crafted about your identity. By the time you reach lock-in, you've forged a new version of yourself. Yes, this upgraded identity is far more authentic than the slumbering persona, but it remains a construct. It is still a set of walls dictating what is you and what is not you. The subsequent leap necessitates the melting of those walls. This isn't about annihilating yourself. It's about stretching your definition of self far beyond the borders of your current storyline. Quantum yielding occurs the millisecond you resign from micromanaging your own evolution. It is the instant you release the stranglehold on the script detailing who you are and what your limitations are, allowing your next incarnation to surface organically, free from your interference. This is not a call to apathy. It doesn't mean you abandon your advanced radar or stop participating in the physical world. It simply means dropping the exhausting, subterranean grip on reality that quietly drains your life force and caps your potential. It means releasing the white-knuckle clutch on the healed version of yourself you fought so desperately to build. Mara encountered her moment of yielding during what she describes as the most simultaneously mundane and breathtaking afternoon of her existence. She was resting in a friend's backyard as the day wound down. The setting sun was catching the leaves of a specific tree in a mesmerizing way. In that tranquil moment, she caught herself attempting to mentally hoard the experience, trying to trap the feeling, archive it, and guarantee she could access it again later. As she recognized her own clinging, the immense pressure of everything she had been tightly clutching suddenly became palpable. She wasn't just hoarding this sunset. She had been hoarding every iteration of herself. She had been fiercely guarding the meticulously crafted architecture of her new identity, born from the ashes of her breakdown and recalibration. And so, she simply let go. There was no theatrical display, no weeping, no booming cosmic voice, no dramatic epiphany. She just stopped gripping. In the sudden void that bloomed in the microsecond between holding on and releasing, she encountered a sensation that defied vocabulary. It was a vibration, a pure essence of vitality that had nothing to do with her. She wasn't producing it, and it didn't rely on the elaborate structures she had been exhaustingly trying to uphold. It was simply there, accessible, ever-present, and waiting. She had just transitioned into the 7th realm. Phase 7, harmonic resonance. We have now reached an altitude where conventional vocabulary starts to break down. The phenomena that occur at this tier are incredibly difficult to articulate using the grammar of the preceding stages. However, we must strive for accuracy, because clarity is vital, even when mapping uncharted lands. In the realm of advanced physics, there exists a principle known as harmonic resonance. This occurs when two distinct quantum structures, vibrating at an identical core frequency, begin to swap energy and data without touching. They aren't linked across physical distance. They are coupled through their vibrational pitch. An alteration in one instantaneously impacts the other, not through any visible chain of cause and effect, but via their synchronized energetic signature operating beneath the threshold of standard observation. At the harmonic resonance stage of your expansion, your awareness begins interacting with the fabric of reality in exactly this manner. This isn't poetry. It isn't a metaphor. It is the most literal description possible. You begin to harmonize with the external environment in a way that bypasses traditional logic and causality. Here is what that feels like internally. Events begin to unfold that you did not orchestrate. These aren't mere lucky coincidences or a vague sense of things working out. They occur with a razor-sharp accuracy, relevance, and timing that clearly respond directly to your internal vibration. The exact ally materializes at the precise second they are needed. Crucial data arrives through unexpected but perfect avenues. A new doorway swings wide open the instant the previous chapter concludes. This doesn't happen because you aggressively plotted it. It happens because your frequency, now stabilized, unified, and stripped of the static from the lower tiers, is vibrating in direct unison with the intelligence governing the universe. Many ancient philosophies refer to this state as grace. Modern paradigms might label it flow. In the framework of energetic evolution, it is harmonic resonance. It is the condition where your internal pitch and the external world are so perfectly tuned to one another that reality seems to actively collaborate with your growth in ways that defy normal explanation. Within this resonant field, your entire concept of effort is revolutionized. You don't become inactive, but the flavor of your action fundamentally changes. Back in the slumbering matrix, action was exhausting because you were constantly battling your own true nature, grinding against internal blockages to force external results. During the initial awakening, action remained strenuous, though it slowly began aligning with your rising vibration. At the lock-in phase, action grew highly efficient because you eliminated the friction of your own internal contradictions. However, at harmonic resonance, action transforms into deep participation. You are actively engaging in a current that is already rushing toward your ultimate destiny. You are no longer fighting the tide. You are gliding with it, and the tide is carrying you exactly where you belong. Furthermore, this tier marks the onset of what many describe as profound healing, not merely repairing your own wounds, but an environmental healing. Your mere presence within a room, a dynamic, or a group begins to naturally elevate and steady the frequency of the surrounding space. You aren't actively trying to fix anyone. Rather, your unified vibration is now potent enough to recalibrate the environment. To borrow from physics again, you have become a coherent source. You are a laser, not a scattered light bulb. Coherent sources don't just provide light, they bring order. They enforce harmony upon whatever they touch. Yet, as profound as harmonic resonance is, it is not the ceiling. The journey continues upward. Phase 8. The Quantum Observer. Crossing this threshold demands a very specific, rare flavor of bravery. It isn't the bravery required to take action or the courage needed to yield. It is the bravery of absolute, unfiltered self-honesty. In quantum dynamics, observation is not a passive event. The observer isn't merely taking notes on a pre-existing reality. The act of observation itself collapses the probability wave. The very process of witnessing dictates which of the infinite potentials solidifies into fact. The observer is never isolated from the experiment. They are an integral component, and the nature of their observation directly shapes the outcome. Translated to your consciousness, the quantum observer phase signifies the mastery of an incredibly refined self-awareness. It is a gaze so pristine, so utterly devoid of defensive walls, and so detached from ego preservation that you can look at your entire self, your flaws, your talents, your resistances, and your triumphs with absolute neutrality. You analyze yourself with the same serene objectivity you would use to watch a storm roll in or a flower bloom. Apathy is often mistaken for true observation. But genuine witnessing requires absolute immersion, facing reality without blinking and without adding theatrical narratives. This is incredibly challenging, not because your core truth is terrifying, but because the ego fiercely guards its manufactured identity. This identity relies heavily on defensive mechanisms, intentional ignorance, and deep-seated illusions that have hardened into perceived facts over time. The role of the quantum observer isn't to violently crush these illusions. It simply watches them. When these hidden scripts are bathed in the light of pure, non-judgmental awareness, their hidden authority evaporates. A subconscious habit, once fully exposed to the light of day without being criticized or manipulated, can no longer pull the strings. It is forced to either mutate or melt away entirely. This altitude marks the arena for profound internal alchemy. We are moving past the cosmetic upgrades of earlier stages, like shifting careers or changing social circles. This is about embracing your dark matter, the fragmented, repressed, and exiled pieces of your psyche. These are the buried traumas that haven't yet alchemized into insight. Left unchecked, these invisible wounds continuously manifest the same agonizing lessons, just cloaked in new scenarios. By stepping into the observer role, you drag these hidden fragments into the spotlight. The goal isn't to cure or eradicate them, but to weave them back into your whole. You reclaim the immense life force trapped in that repression, transmuting your deepest pain into your greatest asset. You realize that the very shadows you desperately avoided are actually the wellspring of your ultimate power. For Mara, this stage of the quantum observer arrived 3 years following her quiet capitulation in the backyard. She entered an era of absolute, unflinching honesty. Everything she had been intentionally ignoring about her inner landscape stepped into plain sight. This wasn't a sudden disaster, but a steady, unavoidable glare exposing every hidden corner. With terrifying yet freeing precision, she realized how her newfound enlightenment had merely become a fresh theatrical role. This highly evolved, harmonious version of Mara was just another sophisticated disguise, a new strategy to curate her image rather than authentically exist. She recognized the lingering insecurities hiding beneath her apparent sovereignty, the underlying thirst for validation masked as self-reliance. Yet, she observed all of this without a trace of self-loathing or the exhausting trap of endless self-analysis. Instead, she offered herself a profound, boundless compassion, a love far deeper than any earthly definition. She embraced her entire spectrum, the flawless and the flawed, the vast and the narrow. By dropping the exhausting charade of maintaining this perfect spiritual persona, a massive reservoir of energy was unlocked, launching her into an entirely new dimension. She had entered the 9th tier. If you are currently hovering at a boundary line, if this map highlights a doorway you've been pacing in front of, tell me in the comments. What invisible barrier is blocking your path right now? Declaring its name is the very first step toward walking through it. This brings us to Phase 9, the Singularity Matrix. At this elevation, human vocabulary severely falters. Yet, we must attempt to map it because it is an attainable, tangible state. In the scientific world, the unified field theory seeks to prove that all distinct universal forces, gravity, electromagnetism, nuclear power, are actually just different expressions of one fundamental, invisible web. To the naked eye, they look separate, but at their deepest root, they are one. In terms of human awareness, this phase represents living that exact concept in your waking life. It ceases to be an abstract philosophy, a comforting dogma, or a fleeting high during deep meditation. It becomes the permanent, baseline texture of your reality. At this altitude, the veil separating you from the universe, a veil that has been steadily deteriorating since the beginning of your journey, finally turns completely translucent. You don't dissolve into nothingness or lose your individuality. Rather, the illusion of separation simply ceases to exist. It becomes transparent in the sense that you can look right through the illusion of boundaries. You sense the vibrant pulse of the universal matrix with the same intimate, immediate clarity as your own physical heartbeat. This matrix is the fertile ground that births and holds all things. Yourself, the person you are conversing with, the oak tree outside your window, your very thoughts, and the silent, expansive void from which those thoughts spring. This isn't some esoteric fantasy. It is a precise report of what opens up once your awareness has evolved through enough gateways to finally witness the underlying architecture of existence. This framework has existed eternally. It was completely invisible during your slumber. It is the very architecture that every preceding tier has been slowly unmasking. Within this singularity matrix, your concept of I inflates to encompass the entire web. You are no longer merely a human walking the earth. You are a concentrated focal point of the universal field, momentarily assembled into your specific physical body, experiencing this exact lifetime and this exact second. At the identical moment, you are the boundless field, observing itself through your human eyes. You exist as both the micro and the macro, the isolated drop and the limitless ocean simultaneously. The real-world results of this shift are hard to articulate without sounding pretentious or hazy, yet they are highly tangible and concrete. In this unified state, deep-seated dread evaporates. I'm not talking about the necessary biological instinct that keeps you safe from immediate physical harm, but rather the chronic, existential anxiety that acts as the background static of ordinary human awareness. This dread doesn't vanish because you buried it or achieve some artificial Zen bypass. It vanishes because the root cause of cosmic anxiety is the illusion of isolation, the belief that you are a solitary, separate target in an unforgiving galaxy. Once that illusion of separation shatters, the dread simply loses its anchor. What is left behind is not apathy. It is not emotional withdrawal or a spiritual anesthesia masquerading as tranquility. What remains resembles a profound state of love. However, this isn't the romantic, conditional love based on personal desires and attachments. It is a foundational, structural love, the very frequency of the universal web itself. You don't manufacture this affection. Rather, you are now plugged directly into its source. It demands no justification and needs no specific recipient. It is simply the internal sensation of the universe operating at its highest resonance. Operating from this paradigm transforms your daily actions into something miraculous. You no longer make moves driven by a frightened, contracted ego desperate for specific results or survival tactics. Instead, the unified web acts through the unique vessel of your existence, your innate talents, your personal history, your distinct personality. They don't disappear. They are fully utilized, but now they serve a purpose infinitely grander than your personal biography. The sheer impact, penetration, and accuracy of your actions reach a magnitude entirely impossible in the earlier phases. This is the true definition of becoming invincible. It doesn't mean you are an unfeeling stone, immune to life's impacts. You still feel every spectrum of emotion. You are completely engaged with both the majesty and the hardship of the human experience. You become untouchable because the stormy, unpredictable chaos of the outer world can no longer penetrate your inner sanctum. Your center of gravity has relocated. It no longer rests on fragile external conditions. It is anchored deep within the singularity, and that foundational web is completely immune to the fleeting storms of temporary circumstances. You can stand in the eye of a hurricane surrounded by hardship, ambiguity, tragedy, intricate drama, or loss and remain fundamentally unshakable at your core, not by checking out of reality, but by anchoring into a truth that lies far beneath the surface noise. You become the bedrock that holds firm while the topsoil shifts. You are the quiet that persists even beneath a roar. You are the infinite ocean that does not shrink, when a single wave crashes. This is the realm of true invulnerability. Crucially, this isn't a trophy you win and mount on the wall permanently. It is an energetic signature you practice tuning into. You learn to visit it, return to it, and eventually operate from it with growing reliability, until it evolves from a fleeting, ecstatic peak experience into your permanent baseline of existence. Next, we must address the spaces between the milestones. The chart we have sketched so far, the slumber, the initial vibration, the breakdown, assimilation, lock-in, yielding, resonance, observation, and singularity only highlights the massive doorways. However, the terrain between those doors is far from blank. It is not an idle waiting area. It is the crucible where the actual muscle of your awakening is built. Following every major leap, you enter a mandatory phase we can label energetic grounding. You have to fully move into the new frequency before you can attempt the next jump. The heightened vibration must saturate every single layer of your existence. It cannot be confined to your intellect, your meditation practice, or your fleeting moments of bliss. It must seep into your physical biology, your nervous system, your friendships, your mundane routines, and your fundamental approach to finances, leisure, labor, and time itself. This space is where the true work unfolds. It doesn't happen during those flashy, theatrical leaps, as vital as they are. It happens in the mundane, uncelebrated grind of embodying your upgraded resonance every single day, especially when it's uncomfortable. It means holding the line when outdated habits try to claw their way back. It means standing firm when surrounded by individuals operating on lower wavelengths who unconsciously try to drag you back down. It means making decisions aligned with your new truth, even if those choices seem reckless, bizarre, or extreme to those still asleep in the matrix. The art of energetic grounding is straightforward in theory, yet incredibly demanding in practice. It requires a relentless, conscious commitment to act from your highest possible vibration instead of falling back on default programming. It means responding from the singularity rather than the scared, contracted ego. Speaking from a place of harmonic truth instead of building defensive walls, operating as the neutral observer rather than reacting blindly from your shadows. We cultivate this muscle through a technique known as gateway immersion. We are going to do this together right now. Settle into a posture that is both relaxed and highly attentive. Don't get so cozy that you drift into sleep, but remain sharp and fully present. If you are driving or handling heavy equipment, please pause this and return when you can safely sit still. Otherwise, sink in. Allow whatever surface is beneath you to fully support your physical weight. Draw in a deep breath, not a shallow, performative sigh, but a profound intake of air. Let it travel deep into your belly. Exhale completely. Take another, and then one more. Now, physically sense your current stage of evolution. Do not intellectualize this. Do not try to analyze your position on the map. Just feel it. Tune into the raw texture of your present awareness in this exact second. Measure how deeply you are actually inhabiting your life, or conversely, how much of that invisible glass barrier remains. Whatever sensation arises, it is perfectly fine. You are exactly where you are meant to be. Every breakdown, every recalibration, every tremor, and every yielding has perfectly guided you to this precise vibration. And from this exact vantage point, your next doorway comes into view. Focus on it. Not the ultimate destination, just the immediate portal standing right in front of you. The one that is already ajar, the one you've been pacing around, inching toward, and retreating from. The one disguised as a massive risk, a painful loss, or a terrifying unknown that you haven't been brave enough to face. Feel its borders. Notice the heavy, familiar, predictable energy anchoring you on this side, the illusion of safety. Now, sense the vibrant, expansive, magnetic pulse radiating from the other side, pulling you forward. Imagine the physical sensation of stepping through. Don't overthink the logistics. Just experience the transition energetically. Allow your biology, your nervous system, and your energy field to sample the atmosphere of that upgraded dimension. Connect with the iteration of yourself already thriving beyond that barrier. This isn't a daydream. It is a tangible, accessible frequency waiting just a few steps away, requiring only your willingness to move. Feel the pure harmony, the sharp clarity, the absolute immersion in your own reality, free from the glass cage. Let that specific resonance sink deep into your bones. Let it imprint on your nervous system so it can serve as your internal compass for the road ahead. This is the core practice. It isn't just picturing a movie in your mind. It is an energetic calibration. It anchors the feeling of your next evolution into your physical body so that when the actual moment to cross arrives, and it is always approaching, you won't mistake the necessary friction for a disaster. You will recognize the doorway for what it is. Take another deep breath. Let the visualization fade, but let that upgraded frequency lock in. Whenever you are ready, bring your awareness back into the physical room. Return to the present, secure in the knowledge that your current location is the perfect launch pad for your next leap. So, what actually transforms once you cross over? This is the most crucial question, and one that most spiritual guides answer vaguely. It isn't just a generic life gets easier. The shift is highly specific, deeply profound, and understanding it will arm you for the reality of the crossing, rather than a romanticized illusion. What fundamentally shifts beyond every single boundary is the core relationship you have with yourself. External conditions do not alter right away. Your finances, physical wellness, and social circles remain intact initially. The most profound primary shift occurs entirely within. It is the dynamic between the part of you that watches and the part that is being watched. With every upward phase, your inner witness broadens. The version of you being observed grows deeply unified and whole. Consequently, the divide between your authentic core and the persona you project into society collapses. The act of pretending fades. Genuine existence takes its place. The immense life force previously wasted on sustaining that illusion is liberated, ready to be poured into true innovation, profound bonds, and meaningful impact. This is the tangible result of passing through the gates. A greater percentage of your true essence goes online. Your unique energetic signature finally beams out into the world. The innate brilliance that was tightly packed into your baseline state begins to unfold, mature, and find its voice. The boundless love inherent to the universal web becomes tangible, flowing directly through the specific conduit of your existence. Your dynamic with hardship transforms. Adversity doesn't vanish far from it, but how you interact with it evolves completely. In the slumbering state, challenges are perceived as attacks. At the initial vibration, they become red flags. During the breakdown, they act as the catalyst for mutation. Within assimilation, they are the building blocks of maturity. At lock-in, they are pure data. In the yielding phase, they act as a summons. At harmonic resonance, they form a portal. For the quantum observer, hardship is a master guru, and within the singularity matrix, adversity is simply the rich, undeniable texture of being alive, inextricably woven into the beauty, significance, and sheer honor of existing in a physical body in the present moment. Your connection with humanity also undergoes a metamorphosis. In your dormant phase, people merely reflect your own internal biases. You only perceive what you are programmed to see. As your vibration elevates, others turn translucent. You pierce through their social masks to read their underlying energetic signature. This isn't done with arrogance or judgment, but with profound empathy. You possess this empathy because you have personally navigated every coordinate on the map. You intimately understand the suffocation of the slumber, the tremors of awakening, and the devastation of the breakdown. Operating from these elevated tiers allows you to connect with individuals at their actual frequency. You no longer meet them where they pretend to be, or where you demand they should be, but precisely where they stand. This authentic, resonant collision of true frequencies is among the greatest treasures this awakening unlocks. Your access to your inherent talents shifts dramatically as well. While dormant, your abilities are locked away, tightly compressed. At the initial tremor, they awaken. Through the breakdown, the chains suppressing them shatter. During assimilation, they begin to crystallize. At lock-in, they manifest reliably. In the yielding state, they pour out effortlessly rather than being forcefully extracted. At harmonic resonance, their influence surges past what mere willpower could ever achieve. Under the gaze of the quantum observer, they are cleansed of any performative ego. Finally, in the singularity matrix, your talents become direct channels for the universe itself. They are no longer your personal property. Rather, you are the specific instrument the universe uses to broadcast them. Lastly, your interaction with the continuum of time past, present, and future is entirely rewritten at every stage. Tomorrow, which once triggered dread during your slumber and chaos during early awakening, transforms into an open landscape of potential. You don't predict or dominate it. Instead, your unified vibration enters into a dance with it. You sense its currents and co-create its reality, rather than acting as a victim of fate. Yesterday, once a wellspring of either longing or guilt, evolves into your greatest asset. This doesn't mean your traumas were good, but every collapse, scar, loss, and hurdle you have digested during this evolution has been alchemized into pure energetic power. It becomes the bedrock of your resonance and your ability to sit fully with all of reality, both the wondrous and the agonizing. At these zeniths of awareness, you do not discard your history. You inherit it. You tap into the profound reservoir of everything you have survived, traversed, and woven back together. It isn't a heavy load. It is the raw material of your unique vibration. It is the specific, hard-won wisdom that only you, with your exact scars and victories, can offer to the collective. The present moment, which in your unawakened state was merely a fragile tightrope strung between the anxiety of tomorrow and the regret of yesterday, becomes the only reality that actually exists. It is the sole coordinate where the universal field can be accessed. It is the only location where a doorway stands. It is the only place where a crossing can ever occur. You cannot step through a portal that hasn't appeared yet. You cannot walk back through a gate you've already cleared. The doorway is here. It is right now. It exists in the exact quality of your awareness as you absorb these words, feeling exactly what you are feeling, being exactly who you are right in this second. The door is unlocked. It has always been unlocked. The only variable is whether you can sense it, and upon sensing it, whether you possess the courage to walk through. Now, a crucial warning regarding the pitfalls of this journey. We must address what we can call the counterfeit frequencies. For every stage of authentic expansion, the ego creates a counterfeit version, a deceptive trap designed to make you feel as though you are ascending while secretly keeping you anchored to a lower tier. This is the ego hijacking the vocabulary of awakening to reinforce its own survival. The counterfeit of the initial tremor. This is the eternal student. It's spiritual tourism without commitment. It manifests as the endless hoarding of podcasts, books, practices, and concepts, collecting aha moments without ever allowing the friction to actually dismantle your life. You turn the search for enlightenment into a comfortable hobby, ensuring the breakdown never actually happens. The counterfeit of the breakdown. This occurs when the crisis becomes your permanent identity. You adopt the label of the wounded healer or the perpetual victim of a dark night of the soul. You use the wreckage not as a bridge to cross, but as an excuse to stop walking. The pain of the collapse is familiar, while the void of the other side is terrifying, so you comfortably build a house in the ruins. The counterfeit of assimilation. This is classic spiritual bypassing. It's using high vibes and forced positivity to avoid doing the messy, painful shadow work. It's meditating to escape your anger rather than metabolizing it. It's building an enlightened persona to avoid dealing with the unhealed trauma still rotting in the basement. The counterfeit of lock-in. This is simply stagnation disguised as arrival. You mistake the base camp for the summit. The plateau becomes your permanent address. You refuse to keep climbing because this level of stability is finally comfortable, and the next leap requires stepping back into uncertainty. The counterfeit of yielding. This is a highly sophisticated illusion. It is the theatrical performance of surrender. You adopt the posture of letting go and speak the right buzzwords, but your nervous system is still gripping the steering wheel until your knuckles are white. You say you surrender, but your actions and hidden motives tell a story of desperate control. The counterfeit of harmonic resonance. This is magical thinking. It is confusing authentic alignment with a childish demand that the universe fulfill your wishes without requiring any actual participation, discipline, or action on your part. It is weaponizing the concept of manifestation to justify passivity and avoid doing the hard work. The counterfeit of the quantum observer. This morphs into spiritual narcissism. It becomes a relentless, self-obsessed loop of internal analysis masquerading as deep inner work. You spend so much time observing your own reflection that you never actually engage with the world. You use radical self-honesty to avoid being honest with anyone else. The counterfeit of the singularity matrix. This is the most dangerous trap of all. It is the arrogant claim of having arrived at permanent enlightenment. You use this untouchable status to elevate yourself above the messy, ordinary human experience, rather than diving deeper into it. You use the highest possible spiritual concepts to create the ultimate wall of separation between yourself and everyone else. Falling into these traps doesn't make you a failure. It doesn't mean you are spiritually flawed. It simply proves you are human. These counterfeits are the natural gravity of your old programming trying to pull you back down. It's the past fighting for relevance. Your defense against them is the quantum observer, your ability to look at yourself with absolute, unfiltered honesty. When you catch yourself in a counterfeit state, you don't panic or judge yourself. You simply name it for what it is and gently steer yourself back to the authentic frequency. The shadow is not an adversary to be destroyed. It is an invitation. The shadow is the next doorway. Let us pull back and look at the entire map, all 9 stages. Slumber, initial tremor, breakdown, assimilation, lock-in, yielding, resonance, observation, and singularity. Do not view this as a linear ladder that you climb once and cross off a list. It is a living, breathing, spiraling staircase. You will revisit these thresholds repeatedly, each time crossing them at a deeper, more profound level of mastery. Because here is a truth this roadmap doesn't explicitly state. This is not a linear climb. You don't just conquer the 9th phase, plant a flag, and call it a day. The architecture of this evolution is fractal. Once you pierce the veil of the singularity matrix, you won't hold that altitude perpetually at first. The dense gravity of the human experience, the stress, the heartbreak, the sheer exhaustion of navigating a physical body in a 3D world will occasionally pull your frequency back down, but you will remember the way back up. And with each descent and ascent, the trail becomes more familiar. The recovery is swifter. Your anchor in the higher vibration becomes stronger. Even within that ultimate unified space, infinite depths remain. There are sharper resolutions of harmony hidden inside the most harmonious states. This expedition does not have an ending. It simply crystallizes. It becomes increasingly elegant, weaving itself flawlessly into the mundane details of your world. This is the core truth of the shift. It is a compass heading, not a destination. It is an energetic habitat you occupy with growing stability. It is not a graduation ceremony, but a way of moving through the world, a sustained, breathing, creative partnership with the universal field that is generating this exact second and whatever unfolds next. Therefore, the question that truly holds weight is not, where am I on the map? It isn't, how can I sprint to the finish line? Or is my awakening superior to theirs? The only question of real consequence is, are you brave enough to cross the single, immediate boundary blocking your path right now? Not the grandiose final portal, just the one directly at your feet. Take the single action that your current bandwidth allows. There is perpetually another doorway. There is forever an elevated expression of your soul standing just on the other side. And from your current viewpoint, the leap will always appear impossibly vast. The entrance will look intimidating. The territory beyond will seem dangerously unpredictable. This is a universal law of every transition. Yet, the moment you step through, it instantly feels like the most organic, obvious reality. You realize that the hesitant, fearful version of you standing at the entrance was, energetically speaking, already residing on the other side, just stubbornly refusing to acknowledge it. You already hold the resonance you are reaching for. It is already your essence. This leap isn't about fabricating a new personality out of thin air. It is the grand reveal of the core truth that has been coiled inside your baseline state all along, simply waiting for the perfect climate to bloom. And the climate is always right now. The doorway is unlocked. So, what does it mean to actually embody this? To not just understand it intellectually or touch it during a fleeting meditation, but to let it radically rewrite the code of your daily existence? Embodying this shift means observing your own timeline with a very specific, refined focus. You drop the frantic impatience of someone racing against a clock, and you abandon the lazy arrogance of someone who believes they have arrived. Instead, you maintain a vibrant, curious vigilance, knowing you are an entity in perpetual motion, completely at peace with the never-ending nature of that evolution. It demands treating every tribulation as a secret passageway rather than a dead end. This isn't about slapping a fake smile on trauma or spiritually bypassing the grit of human pain before you've fully digested it. It means standing inside the fire and asking with genuine fascination, what portal is this friction unlocking? What upgraded version of my spirit is being forged in this exact crisis? It means pledging absolute allegiance to the demolition, because structures will crumble. Breakdown is the exact mechanical requirement for a frequency leap, and state changes are the only way growth occurs. You must trust the free fall. You don't have to enjoy it. You don't have to pretend it doesn't hurt. You don't have to perform a Zen-like calmness when you are secretly terrified. But you must trust the process. You must anchor into the profound knowing earned by surviving every previous collapse that the destruction is the doorway. What is falling apart is merely the cage your expanding spirit can no longer fit inside. It means committing to the immediate next action, only the next one, not the final move, not the grand strategy that solves the entire puzzle. You take the single step illuminated by your current vibration, armed with exactly what you possess right now. The subsequent stepping stone will remain entirely invisible until your foot firmly lands on this one. Finally, it means walking this path alongside others who are also doing the work, not because you desperately need their validation. You do not. You do not need an external community for validation. However, you seek it because the harmonic web is exponentially magnified when awakened minds connect. The collective frequency of a tribe genuinely dedicated to its own ascension resonates infinitely louder than any solitary seeker. The authentic reflections, the necessary friction, the mutual observation, and the shared harmony, these are irreplaceable catalysts in the alchemy of your expansion. Furthermore, this demands a specific caliber of patience. I do not mean the lazy, self-indulgent patience used as an excuse to avoid doing the hard work. I mean a profound architectural understanding that this leap is not a race against the clock. The pathway will manifest only when the environment is perfectly primed. You cannot violently pry the door open before it's time. Your ultimate responsibility is simply to prepare the ground, stabilize your vibration, engage in the gritty work of assimilation, hone your advanced radar, cultivate inner unity, and surrender to the fact that the barrier will dissolve only when your energetic signature perfectly mirrors the reality on the other side. This is the unbreakable physics of the threshold. It does not operate on your impatient schedule. It doesn't swing open just because you are desperate, because you worked yourself to the bone, or because you feel you've earned it. It opens strictly through vibrational synchronization. When the harmonics align, the path clears. Your solitary mission is to tune, hold, and perfect that pitch so you are a match when the lock clicks open. You are actively doing this right now, merely by staying anchored to this transmission, by willingly examining this entire evolutionary map, sensing your exact coordinates, and bravely feeling the edges of your next transition. The portal is unlocked. This is not flowery poetry or an abstract metaphor. Deep within your awareness, right in this microsecond, a doorway is active. An energetic upgrade is firmly on the table. A more authentic version of you is standing just across a divide that you are entirely capable of bridging. In truth, by holding this realization in your mind, the crossing has already begun. Every single altitude of this ascent from the heavy slumber to the invincible singularity is yours to claim. Not instantaneously, not by cheating the system and skipping the difficult middle steps, but sequentially, naturally, in the exact rhythm your specific soul requires. Conquering one barrier sheds light on the next. Metabolizing one paradigm shift makes the subsequent leap mathematically possible. Understand this deeply. This massive journey from the initial tremor to the singularity matrix is not a flight away from human existence. It is a fierce, headfirst dive into the absolute core of it. It is the embrace of radical aliveness. It is the profound privilege of inhabiting this physical form in this exact era, completely and irrevocably awake. This is the true definition of the energetic leap. You are lingering at a boundary line right now. You have likely been pacing in front of it for much longer than you consciously realize. The internal pressure has been compounding. The climate has been shifting. Your core resonance has been escalating. And now, bathed in this new clarity, the entryway is completely illuminated. What you decide to do with this illumination is entirely up to you. It will always be your choice. The portal will not violently suck you in. The universe does not force evolution upon anyone. This expansion is an interactive process. You must step forward consciously, deliberately, with your eyes wide open to both the sacrifice and the ultimate prize. The sacrifice is always the death of your former self. The toll you must pay is your addiction to comfort, your desperate illusion of control, and the familiar, heavily managed identity you worked so hard to curate. And the prize? What every single threshold grants you, without fail, is a massive reclamation of your true essence. You gain an explosive increase in vitality, deeper cosmic coherence, and a profound expansion in your capacity to feel, forge, connect, and serve. You unlock permanent access to the foundational web of reality. You embody that invincible presence, not a cold, unfeeling armor, but an unshakable groundedness anchored in the unmoving bedrock of the universe. The individual who clicked play on this transmission is fundamentally different from the one absorbing these final sentences. You are already mutating. The blueprint is now firmly in your grasp. The boundary line is visible. Your frequency is cresting. The ultimate question remains exactly what it has always been, at every single juncture, and what it will remain for the rest of your existence. Are you ready to cross? The portal is unlocked. It has always been unlocked. It will forever remain unlocked, and waiting on the other side is the breathtaking reality of what this human experience was actually designed to be. No longer trapped in the heavy gravity of the baseline, no longer pressing your face against the cold glass of an unlived life, you finally step into the boundless expression of exactly who you came here to be. The doorway is wide open. Step through. Once you successfully navigate the crossing and your upgraded vibration firmly locks in when this elevated dimension transforms into your everyday normal, pause and recall this exact second. Reflect on what it was like to hover at the entrance, staring down the intimidating unknown. Look back not with sentimental longing, but with profound appreciation. Because this precise millisecond is the spark. An unlocking door is eternally the genesis of an entirely new universe. Whenever you find yourself caught in a suspended breath, a silent dawn, or a liminal space between your history and your destiny, return to this broadcast. Allow it to realign your compass. Furthermore, if you know a fellow traveler pacing before their own invisible barrier, paralyzed by an unnamed transition, send this guide to them. Handing a map to a wandering soul does more than just point them true north. It fortifies your own energetic grid through mutual validation. Two individuals witnessing each other's evolution forge a combined harmony, far more powerful than their isolated parts. A portal stands wide open within your psyche at this very moment. You are towing the line. You recognize it, and you fully grasp the realities waiting on either side. You understand that this is your point of no return. The final riddle is one that solely you can solve. Honestly, I believe your soul has already decided. The answer has been resting inside you all along. It is the absolute magnet that drew you to this space. To continue your expedition, there is another session that decodes the silent vibration currently operating within your physical vessel. This underlying pulse has been secretly sculpting your universe from the shadows, long before you possessed the vocabulary to describe it. It is titled, "The Hidden Frequency Inside Your Body They Never Mapped." If today's blueprint struck a chord, that next transmission will plunge you even further into the intricate mechanics of your energetic broadcast, revealing the limitless potential unleashed once you finally master the exact signal you've been emitting your entire life.